Hey guys, I've got a Christmas book for you, but it is also a Longmire book, and just for extra fun, you don't have to be familiar with the series to jump into this one. It helps, naturally, but this is a very, very good self-contained. I don't know if it's a novella, I couldn't tell you the word count. I know that the audiobook is under 4 hours, so it's not quite a short story. There's plenty to sink your teeth into it, though. The title is Spirit of Steamboat. I don't remember exactly where this falls in the order of the series, but it's largely a flashback. It starts on Christmas Eve. Walt is sitting in the sheriff's office doing his annual reading of A Christmas Carol, and some lady comes to visit him at the sheriff's office. Her name is unknown to him immediately, but she's looking for him and Lucian. Lucian is the previous sheriff. In the show, he was played by Peter Weller. He was very similar in the show in terms of his temperament, but his story was a little bit different. And they also gave him a brother and a nephew that weren't in the books, but whatever. He's a veteran of World War II in the series. Specifically, he was a pilot in the Doolittle raids that if you saw the Pearl Harbor movie, that was the one where they lightened a whole bunch of bombers and got them to take off of an aircraft carrier to do a quick bombing raid in Japan and then crash in China. And so yeah, canonically in the series, Lucian Connolly was one of these Doolittle pilots. That's relevant because this woman who comes to visit Walt says, hey, back in the day, you saved me, and he realizes who she was, and this is where he flashes back to 1988. It was also Christmas Eve. There was a family that most of them died in a car crash. The parents died, but there was a young daughter who was roughly the same age as Walt's daughter at the time, Walt's daughter Katie, and she was badly burned, and she wasn't going to survive unless she got to an intensive care unit in Denver. The problem is they're experiencing the worst winter storm on record. All flights are grounded, and they don't have anything heavy enough or strong enough to get through the storm out of Wyoming and into Denver, except for, through some historical contrivances, this gigantic B-29 that just happens to be in the hangar in Durant, Wyoming, the fictional Durant, Wyoming. And it's the exact same type of plane that was B-29 or B-25. I'm already forgetting. I swear I get it wrong every single time. But it's the same kind of plane that Lucian flew in the Doolittle raids. And Walt starts hastily slapping a plan together, knowing that if he does nothing, this little girl will die. And he can do something, although it's a risk, and he'll have to put other adults' lives in danger. But he heads down to the local bar where he knows Lucian is. Lucian's already 3 drinks in, but he's like, nope, you're going to start drinking coffee. Come on, we're going to go fly this plane. And from there, they get into the history of how this plane ended up there, how it got its name. It's actually named for a horse. The plane is called Steamboat. It's named after a horse called Steamboat, which is the horse that's on the license plate for the state of Wyoming. And so there's some local lore and everything, but there's also some in-world lore explaining, hey, Lucian was a Doolittle pilot, and he flies this bomber, and it's a total Top Gun Maverick type moment. Like, here comes this grizzled old veteran, and he's like, I know what I'm doing, Greenhorn, let's go. And they're like, no, you'll never make it in this weather. He's like, shut up, here we go. He like does all the things that they say he can't do, and just unbridled screw you energy, just the awesome masculinity of it all. I love it. I've read this book before, but I just read it again today. In fact, I grabbed the audiobook on sale when Audible was doing that sale a couple of days ago, and I'll be listening to it again over and over. It is especially timely for Christmas, not just because the present day portion of it and the flashback were both on Christmas Eve, but also because Walt's decision to do this was inspired by a line from A Christmas Carol about choosing to do things just because it's right and it's for other people. Just a fantastic book. It was 5 stars then, it's 5 stars now, and it's tied for my favorite single Longmire novel. One of the especially touching moments at the end was, if you're unfamiliar with, we'll say, a lot of the post-war culture right after World War II, there were a lot of hostilities between Americans and Japanese and anybody of Japanese descent. And Craig Johnson ended up working that into the story. You would understand because, hey, Pearl Harbor happened, the Japanese Empire did their thing, so people from that generation, that's largely their experience with Japan, obviously don't go treating people like crap based on their ethnicity, etc., etc. But I feel like Craig Johnson wrote a very well-rounded character in Lucian Connolly, especially with regard to his feelings about the Japanese. When they finally get to the end of the book, and I won't give you a whole lot of detail about how it wraps up, this whole time that they've been basically doing a duct tape life flight for this dying little girl, and they brought a doctor along, and he's MacGyvering some stuff to keep this girl alive while they're flying through this hellstorm, and it's so awesome. When they finally get to the end and Lucian sees the little girl, and he talks to Walt about it, he's like, "You didn't tell me that she was Japanese," and Walt's like, "I didn't think it mattered." And then he asks Lucian, as Lucian is falling asleep after this whole ordeal is over, he goes, "Does it?" And all Lucian says is, it would have been nice to appreciate the irony. The last time that he flew one of those planes was when he was bombing Japan, and now he was flying one to save a Japanese girl's life. I think there was one thing that I didn't quite understand on the last reading of it, but I appreciated it more on this reading of it. I like when sometimes authors leave things ambiguous for the reader to chew on and make up their own mind about. And in this case, the ambiguity came when they flash back to the present, and this woman who came to see Walt is now the adult little girl who they saved on that life flight. She's talking to Walt and saying, "Hey, I wanted to meet Lucian and thank him for saving my life. And I didn't find out until after my grandmother died. She's the one that told me about all this." And she goes and meets Lucian, and he doesn't remember going on that flight. And at this point, Lucian is very old. He's in a rest home. But for the most part, he's been sharp in all of the other books. And Walt doesn't press him on it, but he doesn't make excuses for him either. But the reader is left to decide and to wonder, did Lucian really remember that flight? Did he forget the flight? And if he's lying, what would be his motivation for it? Is it just that it's difficult for him to handle emotional things? He's a very curmudgeonly old man. In the books, he's missing a leg. He got his leg blown off by, well, not blown all the way off, but it needed to be amputated after he took a shotgun round to the thigh. And so he's on a prosthetic, and he's the former sheriff, and he's living in this rest home. Like, he's a curmudgeon, an understandable curmudgeon, but one nonetheless. And this is the first time in the series that I can think of where he's really confronted with somebody expressing gratitude towards him. Like, not even Walt really shows gratitude towards him, even though, hey, he's my old mentor and we're good friends and all that. I appreciated that ambiguity because it lets you wonder and develop your own opinions about that particular incident and this aspect of the character. So this is a fantastic Longmire book. It's a fantastic Christmas book. It's a fantastic piece of historical fiction. And I really like the fact that even if you know nothing about Longmire, you can just pick this one up. And even if it's the only one that you read in the whole series, it's worth the effort and time. I'm going to start collecting these in print, I think, just to get them secondhand and have a nice kind of beater collection out in the shop. But I'm very excited to get a copy of this one. I know it's one that I'll be having my wife read, and that I'll be reading it pretty regularly every time Christmas comes around. But yeah, Spirit of Steamboat by Craig Johnson. Final note, content warning on this one. I think it's just because it's a novella and maybe because it is a Christmas book, but this one doesn't have the language that the other books in the series are known for. Probably because Vic Moretti isn't in this one. Like, she's somewhere else. But it's just fantastic all around. You know what really ticks me off is yesterday morning gas was $2.15, and then in the middle of the day when I went to get gas, it was $2.45, and now it's back at $2.15 again. Does that seem fair to you? It does not. It's like a reverse Christmas miracle. Anyway, go read Spirit of Steamboat. It's one of my favorite Longmire books. Merry Christmas. Drive safe. See you out there.